the way I live my life is I'm barefoot until it gets really cold. And I eat things out of my hand, except when they're hot. And I just drop crumbs wherever I am on the floor and get the Hoover out. So plates really don't feature unless you're having something like spag bowl. And you need a bowl for soup, although I have been known to eat it out of the container it comes in.
Welcome to Own It, Your Business and Your Life, with Nicola Cairncross and Judith Morgan. In this podcast, we're going to cover everything you need to embrace to become a successful entrepreneur, marketing, money, and much, much more. How to create a business doing just what you love. How to own it, your business and your life. This one will be fast, funny, feisty, and very lively. So sit back and enjoy the show. Morning.
I was just about to send you a message to say, is it me?
No, it's me.
It's me. No surprise. Now, right. Tell me about your week.
Well, I've been trying to ignore the weather.
It has been massively rainy this week. It's slightly better here today, isn't it?
Yeah. I've totally ignored it. But luckily for me, I've largely been ferried about in luxury vehicles.
Oh, not too bad.
I went to lunch on Monday with Greg, who's got a new top of the thingy Range Rover with a big glass roofy thing, and the seat in the front not only warmed my bottom, but it massaged me all the way to the marina and back.
Slightly too much information. The thought of your bottom being massaged, but there we go.
That wasn't my bottom, my back. Sorry, my back was being massaged.
Your back. Warmed. Okay, good.
And we had a lovely lunch at the marina on a Monday, and he says he loves to go there when it's nice and quiet. Obviously, the weekend's absolutely ram-jammed. But they've got this sort of deck of restaurants overlooking all the ships, the yachts, the boats, whatever they're called. And it was really lovely, and we had an amazing lunch, and I'll tell you a bit more about that in Project Updates.
Okay.
Then Tuesday, I went to lunch with Pete. And Phoebe took us out Monday night, so I'm starting to think I'm going to have to stop eating. So, I went to meet a bunch of very interesting guys on Tuesday. They pulled into what looked like a dirt track racing bike place. And then he turned around the corner of that and pulled into what looked like a car yard. You know, it had all buildings around the outside and it had all cars in the middle, you know, sort of cars that were waiting to be fixed. And quite a lot of them were luxury cars. And then we walked around the side of a building. I mean, I still didn't know where we were going at this point. I wasn't sure if we were going for lunch. I didn't know if we were going for coffee. We were meeting someone who coincidentally used to arrange the finance at the Acacia. So I haven't seen him for a long time.
Okay.
Mortgage broker there. And I didn't know where we were going. I didn't know where we were going to meet him. And then they opened this door in this corrugated iron shed. And I walked into the most luxurious office I've seen for a long time. So it was really quite fascinating that they were based up there, and then they turned it into something really rather lovely to work in. It was all, it was all dark grey carpets and glass walls and big swanky tables and desks and things. And so I had a really interesting meeting there. And I was there to see if I could help with their internet marketing. And as is the case, there was a guy there who was the incumbent internet marketer kind of guy, and he was quite a bit older, and he was very shaky, a little bit anxious, as some of these people are. And I made a big point, as I always do, to be non-confrontational and not try and look like a know-all. And actually, he had done quite a good job up to date. You know, he was working a bit too much on the SEO for my liking, but he had done really a good job of getting them somewhat towards what's the word? You know, modern marketing standards. And the fact that I'd worked for, because they're a Swiss bank actually. They work with a Swiss bank, and they're a finance company and a leasing company and all sorts of things like that. And the fact that I'd done that job for Trade River Finance back in the day, which I'd totally forgotten about, to be honest. They said, have you ever worked for any financial people? And I thought, I'm pretty sure I worked for a bank once. Halfway through, I was thinking, they don't need me. And then they started talking about how much they were paying to a web design agency in Brighton and paid traffic agency in Brighton and an SEO company in Brighton. And then when they told me that their web design company had quoted them $8,000 to copy one of their websites and fill it with different content, I thought, no, this is ridiculous. I let myself let out a teeny tiny expletive at that point, at which point everyone around the table laughed and said, "Oh, thank God she swears." So that it all went very well from there, and I think I've got, I might have probably got the gig. So I've sent off a short email proposal. It's to work with them for a year on a retainer basis and just basically be their digital marketing department, me and my team.
Okay.
And they were very fun guys, so I think that would be quite nice. And then after that, Pete and I went to lunch to celebrate, and I walked home about 4 o'clock thinking, well, I could live this lifestyle, but I'm going to get an awful lot rounder, even rounder.
and wetter when you were walking home.
Yeah, no, it was in between showers at that point, luckily. And what else has happened? Wednesday, oh, hang on, I've written something in that I can't read. How interesting. Yeah, Wednesday and today and tomorrow I'm going to be working on this new project that I'll tell you about later. Okay. So not very good week, apart from the rain. What's about you?
Oh, completely the opposite. Very quiet week socially, plenty of rain. Often my rain was at night, which I think is very convenient. Not exclusively, but mainly. And in my little cottage where there is a suspended ceiling, I can nevertheless still hear it on the roof in quite a dramatic form. And there was thunder and lightning, and the lightning obviously feels like it's with you, but the thunder was quite a long way away, but that was quite dramatic. My health is fantastic. My knees are better. I've been off the ibuprofen for 12 days, which is amazing.
Well done. Yeah.
I do know what's causing it, but I'm not yet prepared to tell you because I'm still in an experimental stage, which could last for months. But that's that radically lifts my life experience. And I've been replacing some things that I already own in storage to make where I'm living nicer sheets and towels. I really need some plates and bowls. I've got one large plate and 4 saucers. That's what I'm eating off at the moment.
No.
But, yes. But I manage. One person. I mean, actually, if I could avoid it altogether, and I'm not very good at this, well, my choice is to... the way I live my life is I'm barefoot until it gets really cold. And I eat things out of my hand, except when they're hot. And I just drop crumbs wherever I am on the floor and get the hoover out. So plates really don't feature unless you're having something like spag bowl. And you need a bowl for soup, although I have been known to eat it out of the container it comes in.
I'm shocked.
It's quite picnicky, isn't it?
I would have thought you were very much a proper eater.
Well, you don't. When you live by yourself, you don't go to the dining room table, do you?
I do.
Well, I haven't even got a dining room table. I haven't even got a desk. So
I sit down to eat at a proper table.
Do you? Even if it's like something like a Scotch egg, you can eat in one hand.
Well, no, that's different, isn't it? If it's finger food.
Well, that's mainly what I eat. That's what I'm telling you. Yeah. That's why I've no need to sit. Well, I haven't got a table and I haven't got a desk. So at the moment.
Very bad for you to eat on the hoof, as it were, like that, because you're not supposed to. Your brain isn't supposed to.
You're not supposed to eat before you go swimming either, are you? You're just trotting out some old lady's wives' tales to me. But yes, I mean, I have. When I had a desk, I would eat at my desk because it's just easier, isn't it? But most people these days sort of eat off their laps, off a bowl, don't they?
Yeah, see, I can't eat off my lap because my tummy's a bit big, so it doesn't get close enough.
Well, your tummy's no bigger or smaller than mine, and I could manage. I don't know what's the matter with you, but my dad, who, as you know, was a serving Royal Marine officer, would have what was known as a batman, which was a person that would look after his needs when he was, in jungles fighting, and they would always have a table service when they were in the jungle fighting.
You see, I love that about the British forces, the fact they would do things like that.
Well, I don't know that they all did. I think, if you were high enough up, you look off. And of course, when it wasn't a battle zone, that same person would do the hoovering and play train sets with my brother. So, it was a strange job if you were a Batman, it was called.
Yeah. Trying to keep things going, yes.
Yeah, and I think it wasn't Batman like a Batman. Your job was like a butler, right? Really. Yes, it was so my dad's uniform, everything my dad needed to do his job, including sitting down and using the butter knife, was organised by this human being.
Very funny.
It is funny, yes. I don't think he would approve of me eating off my lap, off a bowl, or dropping crumbs all over everything.
No, it's interesting because here we got 3 people who are eating different food at different times all the time.
Yeah,
but we have managed to come together for 2 meals this week. One around the dining room table, and one actually Phoebe's on a mission to get rid of this dining room table. She's taking up too much room. She keeps sending me little pictures of Facebook shops, where they're selling space-saving dining table sets. I think that's in a big hint. I should buy one.
Yeah. I tell you, when I go to dinner parties and lunch parties and Christmas Day and things at other people's houses, of course, I love sitting around a table, eating and conversing. And I'm always the last person who wants to get down from the table. Because when you get down from the table, you break the spell, don't you?
Yes, that's very true. I'm exactly the same. Yeah.
Yeah.
Brace yourselves, people. I haven't told you about a new social network for a very long time. But there is one coming, and I think you need to pay attention to it. It's called TikTok, formerly Musical.ly. It used to be called musical.ly, and it's Gary Vaynerchuk's an investor, and he banged on about it a little bit in the beginning, and then he went very quiet on it. And it's now been rebranded as TikTok, and its Chinese equivalent is the biggest social media platform in China. And I've been told by both Gary Vaynerchuk and Justin Brooke, who was told by Gary Vaynerchuk, to check it out. And I have been checking it out. And I think you should take a look at it. When you first go in there, it's all kids and kittens doing funny things. And the point of it is that you can't do more than 15 seconds if you're recording live from your phone. But you can do 4 consecutive 15 seconds. But if you're uploading, you can upload, I think, up to a minute. Now, people have getting very creative with this limitation. And people are putting together really funny videos, especially if you like kittens and dogs, which I do. And they're putting, the thing about it, it used to be that you would lip sync to a song. So what a lot of people are doing now is putting videos to songs in a very creative way, or they're making their pets sing along to songs or do funny things to songs. So there's a real funny side of it, but there's starting to emerge more of a normal think Instagram stories or Facebook stories vibe about it, and lots more grown-ups are getting on it. For example, there's a British mother who's got she's very cute, and then she's got 2 very cute blonde kids. And she pranks them on a regular basis, and they prank her on a regular basis. And she's doing a series at the moment called Revenge Pranks on My Boys, number 19 or whatever it's called. And it's just really, really funny. And I'm not joking. The engagement she's got millions and millions of views. And people are finding that the artificial intelligence that starts, as you start liking stuff with a little heart, it starts showing you more of the same. So you very swiftly move from seeing lots of kids doing things to seeing grown-ups doing things. For example, Unilad, who've got a very strong presence on Facebook and Instagram, have got a very strong presence on TikTok. And you see lots of very interesting things on that. And photographers are doing particularly well. You should definitely get Alice Sheridan on this, because she could do a speeded up version of, she's filming herself painting anyway. She could do a speeded up version of doing a painting, and I'm not joking, she would get so much engagement. I put a couple of, I looked through, I was up till 3 o'clock in the morning the other night because I was so addicted to it. It's amazing how those 15 seconds can add up. So I started just uploading anything in vaguely quirky or interesting I had in my phone library, which was some shots of Heather singing, people, the Bubble Man from Greece, and an accordion player in Greece, and just some shots of the waves on the sunset and things. And within 10 minutes, I had 50, 60 views and likes and things. And I've acquired myself 30 followers, even though I've only been on it for a couple of hours so far. So people are now there's a TikTok marketing group on Facebook that you can join for free. And people are now starting to talk about getting their kids who are TikTok users and have been for the last 2 or 3 years to do webinars to tell us how to do it. So it's great fun. It's very creative, and it's highly addictive. So, and apparently the ad platform is coming soon. So if you are serious about social media marketing and video particularly, I think it's got to be a must. And if you like kittens, it's definitely a must.
Why is it called TikTok?
No idea.
I wondered whether it was the you're only allowed to do something for a short period of time. TikTok. So
I think they changed it from musical.ly because they wanted to broaden away from people just doing lip syncs. But I've got to tell you, the lip sync things are hilarious as well. There's I just saw one this morning. I was just skimming through to get a few good ones, and I saw that the entire police department of an American city lip syncing to something and dancing at the same time, and I love that stuff. So it was very funny. But every time I look at it, it makes me actually laugh out loud with some hilarious stuff. There is, let me just tell you, there is some couple of people to follow and get a feel for what's going on. Okay, so a couple of examples if you want to go and have a look. There's at Mav and Friends, MAV_AND_friends, and there's at Bobby Joe, all one word with an E on the end of Joe, _the cat. The _cat. And there's a couple of people. Derek Cran is one you should check out. And Cody Antle. Let me show you Cody Antle. KODYANTLE. They are guys who seem to be working on African reserves, animal reserves, and they hang out with big cats like they're domestic cats. It's unbelievable watching what these guys are doing. So there's a complete range of check out Unilad to get a good idea of what the youth culture are enjoying, and also they use hashtags. So if you're interested in something particularly like art or photography or sunsets or jazz, go and check out the hashtag for your particular interest, and you'll start to find the influencers there and see what they're doing.
So, just to counter that with a little bit of politics, President Trump made a speech at the UN this week. The world's leaders are at the UN, and it was about social media platforms. And he attacked the companies that owned the social media platforms and said that
the Chinese ones.
Well, he said that actually the American ones. He said they'd got tremendous authority over what we can see and about what we can say, and that a free society will not allow the giants of social networking sites to silence the views of people, which caused them to lose Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, and FT, the owner of Google, a total loss of $58 billion on their stock prices this week, with Netflix losing 4.3%, Facebook losing 3%, Amazon 2.5%, and Google 1.3%, and Apple 0.5%, according to Business Insider, which means we're going to need a new social media platform, Nicola, because the old ones, are under threat because of their power.
Is this Trump that's about to be impeached any minute?
No, that's over already. Less than 24 hours, that's over.
Really?
Yes, because he's done nothing wrong. Nobody can find any evidence to prove they can. We know why we're bringing those things against him, because we don't like him and we don't want him there, but they can't find any proof that he's done anything.
I thought he released a transcript of a phone conversation that proved
something. And I've read it from start to finish, but it didn't prove anything against him. It proved that he'd done nothing. That's the point. That's the point of the transcript.
Oh dear, that's disappointing. I was hoping for an impeachment any day now.
Well, I don't think you're going to get it with Trump, unfortunately. And I think there's a one shot of impeaching, and they've shot it, and it didn't work. So that's that now.
Oh, good God! Well, then we've got to pray for the elections. But if the social media carries on as it is, then nobody's going to get any good information at all, are they? So.
Well, quite. That's an interesting point, isn't it? Once we've watched that program about the hoax, I mean, yours sounds very jolly at the moment because it's about kittens and sunsets. Whereas we know these other ones have been hijacked into areas which are none of their business. No,
yeah, exactly.
Right? Yeah. So I will tell you what's fueled my fire this week is feeling useful, and it was quite a good job that I was quiet socially, because it's been the opposite story with my work. And on Monday and Tuesday, originally it was supposed to be Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday, but it was crammed into Monday and Tuesday in the end. I did 5 clients, which is quite like the old days for me, when I used to do 2 to 3 every day. And then it was just too exhausting, so I cut it back to 2. But most days I don't have to do 2, but I did 3 on Monday and 2 yesterday. And then I had a look at what we talked about, so I could see, how I had felt useful. And it was mainly problem solving, firefighting, and just-in-time advice. And then I reviewed the list, which I'm about to read you, to see, do those people really need me, or am I just... I think there's one there that probably... my clients now are quite grown-up business people in their own right, because they've been with me for a long time. So whilst they all have crises, they are pretty competent. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, yeah.
So with the exception of the first one, who got her website live after years and years and years and years and years for various reasons, and another client who helped her to do that. So, now it begins. Now she does need me. Now we've been talking about, funnily enough, the advice I would have given her 3 years ago about what we do now we've got a website live is completely different in 2019 than it would have been in 2015 or 14 or 13 if she'd done it, or 16 even. And she is fortunately, although an older lady than me, a broadcaster. She's got a career from, broadcasting, which I think is probably the best way to get visibility now. So we talked about podcasting and about Facebook Lives, and I think she'll be brilliant on both of those. Next one was a client with a real world business. And what I mean by that is you've got premises and you've got staff, and she's growing it, and she's quite young, but she's in the stage where it's like advanced retreat, but you learn everything at every stage, and every time you advance next time you go further.
Yes.
But she's also an excellent practitioner of woo-woo. Whenever we agree in the call, let's do some woo-woo, she goes off, she does it, it works fast. And we both laugh and love it, which has got an extra sort of angle on it, really. She's a very competent businesswoman, very competent professional practitioner in her, in her work herself when she's delivering the actual work. And she's growing a team around her in physical premises. And it's not an easy thing to do. It's easier to work at home by yourself, to be honest. But that ease doesn't lead necessarily to the result that she wants at this stage in her life. So my next client was in flux in her work and life, and I've written here, aren't we all now? Because frankly, it does seem to be a very sort of difficult time, I think. And the next one had opportunities and challenges. She was the one that would have been on Wednesday, but we advanced it to Monday. And by the time I'd spoken to her, she'd made because she is quite a competent businesswoman that I've known for more than a decade, she'd made some progress with a couple of the harder issues, which meant we could focus on the areas where I could be really helpful. And one client who is highly skilled in personal development, though that's not her main thing, but it meant she was able to resolve the issues, the emotional issues, much faster than had she not had that skill set. But still, we both learned something from our outrage that we were feeling around something that had hurt her. So do any of those need me? Yes, I think the first one does. Do the remainder? No, I'm not trying to talk myself out of work. It's just that I'm reassuring to have there and to bounce ideas off. But I've noticed how really grown up my clients are getting, which is brilliant, of course.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you should underestimate the fact that, we're talking about it on Monday, actually, entrepreneurship can be a lonely business. And,
I know.
Sometimes an entrepreneur, and I was saying to Greg, it's lovely to come out on Mondays. It's lovely for me too, because I get to talk about things that I can't talk to anyone else about because they just don't understand what it's.
Yeah, I know. That's a difficult place to be in your life, isn't it?
How do you mean?
When you're alone in your work and nobody else understands it, it's a difficult place to be in your life. I mean, it's where I've been all my life, really.
Yeah.
Because all my family and friends. I mean, I've got one entrepreneurial friend, but all my family and friends are employees.
Yeah, that's very difficult. Funny enough, I'm more surrounded by entrepreneurs now. I've come back than I've ever been for a long time, because everybody in Greece just wasn't interested in doing anything or growing anything or starting anything. So I feel very much more entrepreneurially supported now.
Yes, good.
Which is great. Yeah. Okay, focus of the week then. This is
it's a big one, and it's a long one, I'm afraid. So I've got quite a lot of notes here that I'm going to have to read you to read you into the topic.
That's all right. I'll be making notes about.
Okay. So it was my idea to talk about thrift, and what prompted it was that I buy my groceries, as you know, from Ocado, which some people might assume is an expensive way to do it, but they have what is called a price match with Tesco's. And if my groceries would have been cheaper any week from Tesco's, they send me a voucher for the amount off the next shop. So effectively, I'm buying the groceries I like that make me feel reassuringly posh at Tesco's prices. Now, I could be more thrifty because I also buy the expensive things at Ocado rather than the inexpensive things. But the thing that prompted it was this week's voucher was £1.16. And given that I don't have a desk, and given that it involves copying and pasting, which for me still involves a mouse, I thought, I don't think I'm going to bother to bother with that, processing the £1.16. But I've noticed it in me before that when they send me the voucher, if it's like less than £1, I think, oh, I can't really be bothered to do that. But if there's a number that it gets to, and I'm not exactly sure whether it is, it might be sort of £3.50, where I go, oh yeah, all right, then I'll deduct that from next week's shop. But I thought to myself, the thrifty would be appalled by that. So then I thought, well, I went into our Facebook group and I asked, if you're a thrifty person, and I know one of our listeners is, can you talk to me about it? And that listener was the first person to pile in. And we had a very funny conversation where I said, you were that listener. And she said, was I that transparent? And I went, yes, from our very first meeting. And the very first meeting, she came to my house to play cash flow. And as you know, when you get a baby in the cash flow game, your expenses go up by 150 a month. And I remember her saying very memorably in the garden shed, when I had a baby, my expenses didn't go up at all. And when you look at what she has offered for her iteration of thrift, she mends broken things. So somebody would have knocked up a crib. She doesn't buy new clothes, she buys them in charity shops. She buys second-hand furniture. She uses a veg box and no ready-prepared meals. And this is my favourite bit. She describes herself as happily self-sufficient. This doesn't involve any hardship for her, and it means that funds are available for what she would regard as luxurious essentials. And what she regards as luxurious essentials are musical instruments, because she plays the fiddle and something else. So she goes on in this story to say that she's bought 3 musical instruments, and certainly you don't knock one of those up. But it provoked in Messenger. People sent me long lists of tips for thrift that they'd culled from Money Saving Expert, most of which I'm never going to use, because it comes down in the end to time versus money and energy versus money, which is the same thing expressed differently. And if you like painting things and repainting things, and what is that trendy name for furniture these days? It's not upcycled or distressed.
It's upcycled, but we actually call it They Saw You Coming.
Well, quite. There we go. Here we go. So that's when people upcycled, when people go to skips and turn it into furniture or paintings. Now, I shared a flat in the 70s with 3 or 4 people I was at school with. And one of them did what we've laughed at ever since, which was he saved butter papers. So when you finished a pound of butter or half a pound of butter, he would save the paper and put it in the fridge door. And when quizzed on this, it was for later greasing a cake tin. Now, students never. When was the last time you greased a cake tin?
Well, many years ago.
Decades, exactly. But, he'd obviously brought up that when you finish butter, what you do is you put that sort of waxy paper in the fridge, because you'll need it later for greasing a cake tin. And the other thing, of course, that doesn't happen anymore since they've invented the bag for life, was for decades of my life, people would have what I used to call a bag of bags underneath the sink. So you go to the supermarket and you come back. Well, so we were all brought up not to throw things out, to save them. They'll be useful later, if you know what I mean. And quite a lot of this is Rich Dad type learning. Do you remember that book you remember The Millionaire Next Door?
Yes.
Where people scrimped and saved so that they could retire in their 40s rather than their 60s. And Warren Buffett, who eats the same cherry Coke and steak every day and has a second-hand car and hasn't moved house for decades and it isn't very big. Lots of people live this way for good reasons, I think. So I don't want there to be any judgment in this. So then you then got confused when Jo said she picked up a fridge, freezer and a wine rack from the other tenants where she lives, because they have a system that when they throw things out, they put them in a sort of repository for a bit so neighbours can take them if they want. And that's obviously how Free Cycle works as well. And it reminds me that when you do free cycle things, people are so grateful. It makes you realise that, one woman's throw out is another woman's must have. Then there was talk about growing your own veg and bottling it. And where I'm living now, outside my bedroom window, there are 3 or 4 trees abundant with apples. So I said to them up the big house, what are we going to do with all of those apples? And they, 2 business career people who travel a lot, just looked at me blankly as if to say, we're just going to let them fall off the trees and rot, Judith. What did you have in mind? And I said, well, on the Archers, what they do is they have this thing where everybody collects all of the apples. They then make cider with them and they all share out the cider. So I said, let me see if I can find a local small cider making, bijou cider making who'd like our apples and they could give us some cider. No, I couldn't. And then I looked at YouTube to see how do you make cider, and you've got to collect them all in and you've got to have quite a lot of capital expenditure, which is okay. So you need a cider making press at home and you've got to grind up all the apples and pots to put an outlay at the beginning. Now, that doesn't make any sense here because they're going to extend this cottage and the apple trees are going to disappear, sadly. But if I knew they were going to have apples for the next 20 years, the capital expenditure would be nothing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, my father would drive to a garage further away, the one that was advertising the cheaper petrol. Now, I always thought that was nonsense because you're just using the petrol. You're just using anyway. Now, then there was a lot of talk of parents and grandparents who came through the war when you didn't have anything and you didn't know when you were going to see a tangerine ever again, if ever. And the money-saving expert tips, which I must share with you because some of them are quite funny. They involve squeezing the loo roll before you put it on the holder because it stops it spinning when you pull, so you grab less, which was great when the kids were small as they kept clogging the toilet. Yeah. When you think your toothpaste tube is finished, cut across it and dip your toothbrush into the neck and you'll get 2 or 3 more days out of it. If you use bars of soap, when you hit one, when I read you one that you actually do, I want you to mark it down. If you use bars of soap, save the little bits at the end you usually throw away and pop in a small net bag and use in the shower. When you open a new bar of soap, put the empty packet in your underwear drawer as it keeps it smelling nice. Bubble bath is cheaper to buy per litre than liquid soap and just as good for washing your hands. If you buy herbs in pots in the supermarket, plant them in the garden and you have a continuous supply of parsley, mint and rosemary, especially good at growing without any effort. Save the stalks and peelings from vegetables and freeze. When you have a bag full, boil it up and make vegetable stock. Only fill the kettle with the amount of water you need to make coffee. No need to waste electricity boiling water to let it go cold. Use the plastic bags from supermarkets as bin liners. Conditioner works just as well as shaving foam, but if you really prefer shaving foam, buy a gents one as it's cheaper than the female ones. Any in there that you do?
One.
Supermarket bin liners?
Yes.
Yes, me too. This is one for you. And I've known you to do this. It's a good one. It's a good one. Remodeling of clothes which no longer work.
That's very true.
Exactly. Yeah. Because you've got the skill set to do that. And she gave me an example of, your mini skirt's a bit too short, so now you cut up one and make 2 or something, I don't know. But there was one that involved the cutting up of old bath towels to make floor cloths.
Oh, I do tend to do that.
I don't do that, but I've been in people's houses where they have these raggedy edges bits of towels, so I know that they've done that. No, but she did say, this woman, some money-saving exercises take time to implement, so if you value your time, you may not do them. And then we had a laugh, because I've worked with this woman for over a year. She paid my fees at my top level in full, in advance. I know she's got a profitable business with savings accounts, and I never knew that she'd go to these sort of lengths to save time, because she's also a very busy woman. But I guess she told me that her mother was Irish and her granny was Scottish, or vice versa, and that they'd, brought her up in these housewifery skills, just as a fact of life, just as the way it was. Yeah. But I have got one here, one more, and then an ending. One more that she says it, well, let's not judge it in advance. Not sure if this counts as thrift. We got to a point quite a few years ago that we could happily live on our income, pay our mortgage, put food on the table, have some nice but not mega extravagant holidays. Since then, any additional income gets saved and invested. It allows us to live well below our means and build a nest egg. If circumstances were to change, the income we would have to replace is below current, and we have backup to keep us going for a few months. Actually, now that's more like a year. Well, that one I can get behind, because that one is a total rich dad. Yeah. And also all the other ones lead to that if you're on a low income.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm just going to finish before you speak with a quote from David Copperfield by Charles Dickens.
I know.
Mr. Micawber's famous and oft-quoted recipe for happiness, and I think that might be germane. Annual income £20, annual expenditure £19, 19 shillings and sixpence results happiness. Annual income £20, annual expenditure £20, ought and 6 result misery. Yeah, so overspending and debt does lead to misery. Underspending, saving and thrifty habits, the opposite, especially if you enjoy the effort or the hunting around the charity shops or the painting or the remodeling of things. I can't be bothered to chop in a £1.16 voucher. I'm going to shut up now and you can talk to me about thrift.
Where do I start?
I know. It's huge, isn't it? It's huge.
Yeah, it's a great topic. My grandmother and grandfather, he was a market gardener and she was a char lady. And she used to go and clean for people like doctors and lawyers and people like that. And they had a little bungalow that they owned, which was quite unusual in those days. And they had previously owned, so they bought their own house when they got married. God knows how they afforded it. And it was
because it cost about 500 quid, didn't it? But,
well, I went past it the other day. It's worth about $500,000 now.
Yeah.
And I remember then they moved to a little bungalow. They downsized when their kids grew up and they moved to a little bungalow. And the garden was absolutely full of fruit and vegetables, and there was a greenhouse full of tomatoes, and there were raspberries, and he grew everything basically.
But he must have loved that, don't you think?
Oh, well, that's what I'm about to say to you. And Nanny, and he had a garage full of fascinating tools, and he was always doing carpentry out there and woodwork and mending things and making things, and Nanny used to sew and knit and crochet, and she used to design. She was a member of the WI. In fact, she got drummed out of it because she kept winning everything all the time. She won. She cooked. She baked. I mean, it was an idyllic Nanny and Grandad setup. It really was.
Yeah.
For kids to go round there and have these exotic meals made of all this beautiful stuff that was grown in the garden.
Yeah.
We used to then go and sit down with Nanny, and she'd teach us how to sew, how to crochet, how to knit,
Yeah.
She'd be doing flower arrangements from flowers that she'd grown in the garden.
Yes.
I mean, they were pretty much self-sufficient themselves, like, as you said.
Well, these are homemaking skills we've lost.
But also, Nanny was highly creative. Looking back now, I can see that she was entrepreneurial and creative, and she didn't have any outlet for that. But her all of that stuff gave them both creative outlets and gave them an enormous degree of satisfaction.
Yes.
Then I moved in with Kim, who never sits still. I mean, even when she's she'd go out to work all day as a hairdresser, very creative. And then she'd come home and she would always be upcycling things she got in junk shops and antique shops. She was always rubbing something down, or, in front of the telly. So, or she was sewing something, or she was making some sort of gorgeous bedspread. It was, very bohemian, but it was always very beautiful. And that really got me. I said to her, we used to not, even when we had hangovers, we were sitting there rubbing things down the sewing.
But were Nanny and Grandad and Kim doing those for reasons of thrift, or just because they love those activities?
I think Nanny and Grandad started doing it for thrift and carried on because they absolutely loved it. And it gives, in those days, what else was there to do apart from watch Upstairs, Downstairs? There was only about one telly programme a week.
I think when Nanny and Grandad were doing that, we didn't even have telly, did we?
Well, I do remember watching Upstairs, Downstairs with them.
Okay.
So they had a telly in a teak cabinet. You'd open the door at the front. And but I remember, very happy, busy times and full of great activities. And then my mum wasn't really into any of that, so we didn't do any of that stuff in our house. But we did read, so there's not very much.
She did it in another way, though, Nicola, didn't she? She did upcycle houses.
She did. She bought and sold houses every 18 months. Yeah. And so overall, I was thinking that thrift used to make me feel poor.
Yeah.
And then when it got to the point of everything being sold or given away through Free Cycle, I mean, some of the things Sarah, I mean, I'd never have been able to do it myself. It was detail orientated. It was time, labour intensive. But she got rid of absolutely everything in that house, either by selling it and I think we made about 500 quid each. I split the profits with her. So it wasn't a house full of valuable things, but by doing absolutely everything, either selling or free, she got rid of everything.
Yeah.
And then after that, thrift felt like a liberation, because going to Greece, there was no way to shop apart from Amazon, and going to Kalamata, it was 45 minutes down that windy road, which I would never really wanted to do. So I lived minimalistically and thriftily. So that's where the Katerina supermarket bags into bin liners came.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do that here if I had a nice house, because I think it looks ugly and I don't like ugliness. But in Greece, everyone is thrifty. They're all turning carnation, cans of olive oil into carnation holders. The Albanians are dirt poor, so they're doing everything they can to make everything stretch as far as possible. Nothing. My friend Katrina, who used to do party planning for people, used to create the most unbelievably beautiful parties for people out of stuff that she and her mate Dave scavenged from bins, the bins in Greece. So it's a way of life out there. And again, it became very creative of how to make your house look nice. Start with a clean, tidy front yard, even if it was only rough concrete, and then start putting olive oil containers filled with carnations on it. It's something they do without even thinking about it out there.
Yeah.
Coming back, I'm living in my ex-husband's bedroom, and I haven't had to buy anything because he's just walked out and left everything. So
Yeah.
My challenge is getting rid of some stuff.
Yes.
Because he's a bit of a hoarder, old Irving. So I think that's the dark side of thriftiness, is that I definitely was affected by that, and he certainly is when you grow up poor, and he certainly did in West London. He's totally unable to give anything away. We are having to get rid of his stuff slowly and just give him a bag full at a time to sort through.
Well, and the upcyclers I know, some of whom are quite wealthy actually, they bring home everything they find discarded by the side of the road because it might come in handy later.
Well, it might come in handy later. That is a double-edged sword, because yes, it might, but in the meantime, it's today's hoarding.
It is, yeah.
And I had to really, when I came back from Greece this time, I actually even forgot my pictures, which is a bit bad, isn't it? So I only had about 4 photograph kind of pictures, and luckily my landlady saved them for me. But the only thing I wanted to bring back from Greece, out of the several things I bought to improve the house, was the thing I took out there with me, which was a little coffee filter and a ceramic pot that it sits in to catch the drips. And I even left, Steve, I even left Steve's olive oil pourer out there, because I thought, really, this is silly.
I thought Theo was going to bring these things back for you.
Well, he was, but he could only fit the coffee filter. I said, Theo, if you can only fit one thing in your hand luggage, then bring the coffee filter.
Well, olive oil pourers are ten a penny, aren't they?
Yeah,
but, it's funny that we began this conversation with me saying I'm living off 1 plate and 4 saucers, and managing perfectly well, actually.
I know. So,
but I have bought some sheets and towels because I couldn't manage without those.
I've got to buy some pillows and some sheets, because I'm on Phoebe's sheets right now.
But you know my Michael Neal quote about always leave any environment you enter better than you find it. I think, the things I buy for this little cottage, I will leave behind because somebody else will enjoy them.
Yes, absolutely, yeah. And I will buy some sheets, because the ones Nelson put on the bed for me were mustard yellow and dark grey, and I can't possibly live with that. Yeah, grim. So I think there is a place for it. I think it can bring a lot of joy if it's creative thriftiness. But I think you have got to guard against hoarding, and I think hoarding and clutter, as we've talked about many times, is a real impediment to clear thinking.
I think there's one more side to this as well, which is without. I don't know whether it's without exception. I'm not sure it is, but the people I know who are the best contributors to any conversation about thrift are perhaps the most challenging clients I've ever had in terms of charging a realistic amount of money for their products and services, so that they can have a successful career. Because they go hand in hand, which is, I don't pay much for anything, so I'm not ready or prepared or even desirous of selling what I create for a decent fee. And one of my clients who didn't contribute to this but may listen is somebody who has a glut of things in her garden and puts them up for the winter and loves that, and I love that about her. And she isn't actually uncommercial, but if she could give it away, she would prefer to.
Yeah. Yes, that is a challenge, isn't it?
Well, it's just an interest. It's the other side of the same coin, or it can be.
Yeah. Whereas I'd prefer to be thrifty where it doesn't count, and have, like the other clients who...
Yes, bought the 3 musical instruments, absolutely.
I don't think twice about buying software.
No, and Irene's contribution about the...
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, well, it's the same. I'm really mean about signing up to the paid version of, say, Spotify and all the brain training, the thing that I do, because they add up those $9.99s and $7.99s and all that kind of thing in the way that Irene has proved to us. I think this is the really interesting thing about, and don't forget I've worked with people and their money since I was 22. You can never work out how people spend their money, because some things to them are expensive and some things to them are cheap.
Yeah. It's we might as well tell people that Irene's thing, because I found it very useful. Do you want to tell everyone what she said?
She always multiplies everything. No, you go, because I don't really... Multiply everything by 10 is next.
No, what I tend to do is sign up for things on a monthly basis, new bright shiny object software particularly, And then I either forget, don't use it after a while, or I forget about it. And what I do, and so what Irene says is, before you sign up for something, multiply what it's going to cost you over the next 10 years, and then think about, is it really worth it? Because she says that stops her signing up for things and she tends to look for the annual deals. Well, I still really dislike annual billing. I hate it because I don't like it when big sums of money go out of my account.
I've got something to contribute on this at the end. Keep going.
And but anyway, so I do Irene's thing. But the other thing I do to stop these things mounting up, and I'm just about to do it again actually, is I'm changing from an online bank back to a terrestrial bank. And I will get a new business card for that, and I will cancel my old business cards, all of them. And as the renewal notices come through by email, I will reevaluate whether I'm still using that, whether I still sign up for it.
Yes.
And I find that's a very good way of having a purge.
Yes, I agree. And
what you're going to say?
I'm going to say it at the end. It's in my who or what's impressed that would help with that thing,
okay.
issue.
Then things like when I was in Greece, I wanted to watch ITV without the adverts. I wanted to watch Hey You, which is a small subscription. I subscribe to The Guardian so that I've got somewhere to go when I hear something on Twitter that I need to check out a bit more on the news. And I've got Spotify and Netflix and all sorts of things like that, but none of them add up to as much as my old Sky and BT subscription.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. Every week in the show notes, I put a link to our free Facebook group. And if you're listening and you haven't joined yet and you want to contribute to this conversation, do join and go there, because quite a lot of these contributions are in the group in the last week or so. It's the top.
Good discussions in there, don't we?
Yeah.
Arising. Matters arising.
Yes. I think we've got to knock it on the head, Nicola, because we're 50 minutes into this recording.
Oh my God! Okay, let's move on.
Oh no, actually, you were 5 minutes late. We're 45 minutes into this recording.
Okay.
Now, give me your word of the week. Hit me with your word of the week.
Tolerations again.
Okay, tell me.
I'm sorry to come back to it, but I've moved into somewhere that's someone else's home, and I'm finding things that I'm tolerating, and I'm busting those tolerations. I have, as of this week, defrosted 2 fridge freezers and created a lot more space therein, but it's quite hard work. You have to do a lot of towel putting down and
yes, you're doing and hacking at ice. You've got 2 fridge freezers.
Well, they have, yes, one on top of the other, and both of them were frosted up beyond belief. They could only get about 5 items in each, so I feel that's a very, very good toleration busted.
It's all quite thrifty as well, because it uses more electric when it's bunged up with ice.
I know. I have to keep opening the freezer to have a look at my handiwork, though.
I bet. It's beautiful and admiring it, yes, because there's nothing like it when it's all smooth and clean.
Absolutely right, yes. So I'm tolerating, and then I'm noticing my tolerations, and I'm busting them one by one. Which gives me a massive feeling of satisfaction. I can't.
Yes, ticking things off your list. Yeah.
What's your word?
Oh, you're going to like mine. Mine is sapiosexual.
Ooh, what's that then?
It means a person who finds intelligence sexually attractive. Now, before we started this podcast, for years I told you that a man's most attractive organ was his brain.
Yeah.
And I've mentioned it on this podcast several times. And guess who came out? I think you'll probably know who came out as sapiosexual this week.
No.
Mark Ronson. And if it's good enough for Mark Ronson, it's good enough for me. That's what I can tell you. And actually, if anything, he's a great example of it.
He is a great example of it, because he's very, very clever.
Very clever, very attractive, very talented. Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely more attractive because he's so talented. Yeah.
Well, quite. And yes, I agree. Which to me is the same thing.
I've noticed that this week while watching some television, so I'll tell you about that later.
All right, tell me about project updates. I have none, by the way, so that's good.
All right, well, I can just whiz through. Own It, the podcast, has topped 120,000 downloads, which is rather exciting. I've got a new project on the go. I went out with Greg on Monday and said, look, I'm going to tell you about this opportunity that's presented itself by Thomas Cook going bust, and I want you to talk me out of it. So all the way over to the marina and all the way through lunch, I told him about this opportunity. And unfortunately, he didn't talk me out of it. He actually joined in with me on it. So it's a very new project. I'm not about to tell anyone about it yet, but I'm working on it as we speak. And it's something that doesn't depend on me, which is, I've been looking for something like that for a while, a real-world business opportunity that doesn't depend on me being the front person. So it would be an asset that would continue after my demise. And
Okay.
I'm very keen to find one of those. So.
Okay.
Yeah, that's me.
What's impressed you?
Oh, you're going to love this. Right, so Nelson and I watched a hip-hop documentary accidentally a couple of weeks ago when I first got back. It was the Travis
Yes,
Scott.
you told us Travis somebody.
Yeah, Travis Scott. And we've started watching a TV programme on BBC called The Rap Game. And it's got all the elements I love and some of the elements Nelson loves. So we're watching it together, which is nice. And it's a bunch of kids who are getting together with a DJ from Radio 1 and a couple of kids who own a record label in the British rap scene. And they've had auditions and they put, I think there were 7 or 8 of them in a penthouse in Birmingham. And they're taking them through a variety of challenges to see who's going to get the record label deal at the end of it. But it's absolutely fascinating. It's musically very interesting. And but they talk a different language, Judith. It's absolutely hilarious. I said to Nelson yesterday, it's like a different language. There's so many different words, and the way they use words is incomprehensible to the average human being. But I'm picking up on it slowly, and I'm starting to weave some of it into my conversation, which makes Nelson burst out laughing. But I can highly recommend it if you've got any musicality in you at all. You'll start to like rap music by the end of it, which is quite funny.
And the format must be feeding your it's music. Yes, exactly. Feeding your need for in the absence of the X Factor, it'll be filling that hole for you. Yeah.
And as for that blooming, what's it called? Britain's got Global Got Talent celebrity thing. I can't even begin to watch that.
Well, you see, I like Britain's Got Talent, but I haven't even watched that because who could give a damn, really?
Yeah, about talent from overseas. That's xenophobic, isn't it? And the other thing I really enjoyed this week and binge watched was the Chef's Brigade, which is, I think you'd like that, Judith. It's
no, I can't really be asked with cooking programs. Sorry.
Oh, I love it. It's basically a 4-star Michelin chef recruits a load of recruits for his new restaurant from cafes and restaurants around the country. But no, nothing special. You know, they're all sort of just pub grub level.
Yes, and takes them
on a tour of Europe and takes them into the top restaurants in each area. And they get to eat there, they get to taste the food, they then go up against the incumbent chef's brigade, and they have to cook a menu devised by the local chef. And they basically, over the 6 to 8 weeks, they go around Europe and they finish off in Paris, going up against, Michelin-starred chef in Paris. So it's got all the elements I love. It's got travel, it's got cooking, it's got personal journeys going from zero to hero, and it's got a mentor figure who just wants everyone to get better at what they're doing, and do you know who that is? The name escapes me off the top of my head.
Okay, I'll find out.
It's the Chef's Brigade is the program, and I like it a lot.
Well, I'm going to end with something thrifty, which came up on Monday when one of my clients was moaning about how many people on her instalment program bounce their second and subsequent payments, and how much admin there is involved in that, and how she has to pay her VA to do that, and how it was quote unquote costing her a fortune, which I took her to task for because it wasn't costing her a fortune, it was costing her a few bob. But it reminded me that you can get 0% interest-free credit over 4 months when you use something called PayPal Credit. PayPal Credit. This is valuable to us as buyers and sellers.
I thought it wasn't available in the UK yet.
It is available in the
UK.
UK.
I tried to get something on it the other day, and it said it's not available in your area.
Well, one of my clients, I don't know what's the matter with your area, but it's been operating. Try again, Nicola. If you spend over £99, and you can divide that over 4 months at interest-free. If you want to take longer than that, it's going to cost you money and it's not going to be cheap. But, for instance, my clients' programs typically sell, and she gives them 3 months instalments. So what that means is that PayPal pay her in full at the beginning, which goes back to that point you made about not liking to pay for things in lumps. Your clients will pay for things in lumps, but they'll borrow the money from PayPal. So it doesn't. What we get as the supplier is we get paid in full at the beginning, and we never have to do any installment work, and we never have to be involved in what's none of our business, which is offering interest-free credit to people. And we get paid in full, so the client's committed, and all the debt collecting issues are down to PayPal.
Well, until I am able to buy something with it, I'm not going to offer it because I don't think it works yet.
Well, it does work. One of my clients paid me £600 for a year's membership of Small Business Big Magic with it. Now, we just go and just do me a favour and look at the page, okay? Just look at the page.
I tried to apply for something last week.
Well, it may be that you're not creditworthy in the UK because you haven't lived here for 3 years.
Oh, possibly, yeah.
Yeah, see? So I think anybody that's
creditworthy to use it then.
Well, if you want to borrow money from anybody ever, PayPal's a bank. You've got to be creditworthy.
All right.
Okay.
Well, no, they're willing to lend me £1,500 on their.
Oh no, that's not. Well, that's different, isn't it? That's based on your turnover through your PayPal business account.
Yes.
That's different.
Okay.
That's different. This is as a shopper, so they're using different criteria for that. But if you are a business who is offering installment plans and you're finding increasingly that people bounce the payments, try and switch over to PayPal Credit so that PayPal take the strain of that, which is what banks do for a living. It's not what we do for a living. And you'll get paid in full in advance. Your client is fully committed from the get-go. And more importantly than that, you can make more sales.
Okay, well, I don't want to be a wet blanket on this, but the problem with using PayPal as a payment gateway is that your client can turn around at any time.
I know that. I've put that here. I've put that here. But all that means is that you have to be able to deliver what you've promised.
Yeah, the most efficient way of doing instalments is to make sure that the client pays slightly more than half on the first instalment and the two further ones are tiny. And that means that psychologically they're committed then. But
thrifty people like 0% credit wherever they can get it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Now, but if you're finding, as I think that, well, I think this client was just representative of normal life, which is the strain. First of all, we shouldn't be offering this. We're not allowed. You see, it costs more to handle installments, and we're not allowed to charge more because we're not a bank.
Yeah, people get around that though, don't they?
They do get round it, but look what's it's costing them.
Yeah. If it works for some people, that's great.
It does work for some people, and when you've been back here and built up a credit rating on that end again through your address and the what's it called, the electoral roll, you'll get it too.
Yes.
Okay. If you want it,
that one has to be on even one.
And what's brilliant about this is once you've cleared it, you can do it again and again and again.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Good stuff. All right.
Okay. Then. All right. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to Nicola Cairncross and Judith Morgan. Do come and visit us at ownitthepodcast.com. We love to hear your feedback. You can find out more about Judith and visit her on her website at judithmorgan.com, and you can find Nicola at nicolacairncross.com.